Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Positivity Pass It On. My name is Priscilla Subramaniam, and I'm so thankful that you can join me today. I'm really happy to be able to continue these word of mouth Wednesdays to share the gift of people's businesses, platforms, and community service. And so, my guest today is Eric Hewson, the founder of Same Here Global Mental Health Movement. Eric, I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me and for the impressive pronunciation of the last name.
Well, with a last name like mine, yours is like a piece of cake.
Good call.
So anyways, I'll go ahead and hop right in and we'll get to know a little bit more about your nonprofit, Same Here Global Mental Health Movement.
Yeah.
And so my first question to you is, since COVID-19 became a global crisis, what have been some of the biggest aha moments that you have observed in the conversation around mental health?
The timing is interesting because, COVID really took on prominence here in the US, specifically mid-March towards the end of March. It's really when everyone started to hunker down, and that's when all the quarantining started. And then to have Mental Health Awareness Month approaching in May, not shortly after that, it's interesting the intersection of what's happened where it's amplified the conversation even more. So in terms of aha moments, I mean, look, I wouldn't say it's aha for me only because philosophically this is what I believe, but I think it's an aha moment for society, and I hope that doesn't come off in any type of condescending way towards the rest of society. It's more to say, based on my own lived experience, what I realized is situationally in life, the things that we go through when COVID hasn't ever happened, things like the loss of loved ones, divorces, job losses, breakups, bullying, cyberbullying, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. These are things that everyone in this world goes through one or some of those things at different points in their lives. And those things impact our mental health. So now you have a world that kind of doesn't understand that, denies that, doesn't want to believe it, believes if they admit that they're believing that there's this thing called mentally ill, and then they're in this separate category of these 1 in 5 people who are affected. Now the great equalizer becomes COVID, right? Because COVID is, my job has slowed down or been taken away. I don't have the routine with my kids in terms of bringing them to school anymore. I don't have the certainty of my income and when it's coming in anymore. I don't even know what my next 4 days, let alone my next 4 months look like, because I just can't picture them, because I don't know what those other factors are going to play out to be like my job and my life and my income, etc. So COVID's been the great equalizer in that I think people are coming to realize that this concept of mental health is not about I have this genetic disorder that I was born with or I don't, that it's the life experiences that we live through that impact us, and they impact all of us.
Definitely. Well, I realized that I got so excited to introduce you that I didn't talk about your mission. So do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned that I had my own lived experience, which probably would take forever to tell on this. I could give it to the link for your followers to go look at. But the short of it is, professional sports executive for 15 years, life smacks me in the face, drops me on my knees, dysfunctional for 2.5 years, unable to put sentences together as I tried 50 different psychotropic drug combinations, TMS therapy, ECT shock therapy. None of it works for me. I then find out there's my dog. So now it's a real conversation. I find of conversation with what's called an integrative psychologist, that all these things that I lived through as a child with my older brother getting sick. He had broken his femur bone in an accident, was in a body cast for a year, then had ALL, a children's form of leukemia, for 5 years. Then was in a Jeep accident, flew out of a Jeep, landed on his head, cracked his head open, lost partial vision in his eye. Then he got diagnosed with a relapse of leukemia. The chemo treatments were much stronger. It sent him into septic shock. The septic shock sent him into a coma. He was in a coma for 3 months. We didn't know if he'd wake, if he'd have any brain activity. Finally wakes and his kidneys fail from the septic shock. And my father ends up being the closest match, donates a kidney to him. And then 3 of my close friends shortly after that passed away of heart conditions in their 20s, all in the same year. So I learned, right? Like you hear that list, and I learned that life experiences are what impacts our mental health for all of us. And that's not to take away from genetic predisposition. That's to say it's on top of and in addition to genetic predisposition. And so when I came to that conclusion after not focusing on my mental health at all for my first 30 plus years of my life, the thought was, well, wait a second here. Everyone is going through something. And I know that's a very cliche term to use, but I try to dive deeper in the trenches with it. And it's not saying, oh, everyone goes through something. It's let's talk about the specifics of what everyone is going through. It's not that everyone is going through disorder, because that's why those 1 in 5 messages are out there. They actually separate us more. If it was just about disorder, which is what it's been, the messages in society, people say, no, not me. Like, I'm not part of that category. Don't include me there. The category that we're all part of is the category that life between genetics and the stuff that we live through impacts all of us. So from a mission perspective, our Same Here, which is an American Sign Language sign, and we have everyone who shares a story, from athletes to entertainers to musicians to everyday people, all the way down to our practice, I shouldn't say down to, but all the way along to our practitioners, who champion various modalities that help people heal beyond just medications alone. And that's not anything against medication. It's just meaning there's many ways to heal. Is that if we all share our story, we're going to normalize this conversation and make it part of our everyday part of society. And so, whereas most of these, organizations you might speak to in this space would say their mission is to stop the stigma, I don't like using that terminology. I think that separates us further. The terminology I use is to normalize the conversation, make it part of our everyday talk, right? Because if we normalize the conversation by saying Same Here, and Priscilla believing that, and Eric believing that, and then 5 out of 5 people, not 1 out of 5 people, all believing that, that gets rid of stigma on its own without having to say stop the stigma. What Stop the Stigma does is it tells a group of people who don't believe they're in the club that they're the reasons, they're the problem why the stigma takes place, because they're the ones forming the opinions and judgments about everybody else. Again, I think that just separates us into these two groups, sick and healthy, sick and healthy. The truth is this: everyone has somewhere on that continuum been fluctuating up and down at different points in their lives. And so if we could bring people together, as opposed to say, be nice to these people in this group over here, that's a much easier path towards us understanding mental health and how common it is for all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think one of the things that really interested me about your movement was just your messaging and just making people aware that without mental health, there is no health at all. And that has nothing to do with, I mean, it could, take into consideration if it's genetic or not, but just like you have a injury, you fall down and you twist your ankle, and if you needed to go to the doctor and get that treated, it's no different.
Yeah, that's, another analogy, since you use a physical health analogy, one that usually resonates people when I share, because we learn about it at such a young age, is in elementary school here in the States, we learn about jump rope for heart. And you see this, cute cartoon character of a heart jumping rope, like in the logo. And so we're taught in physical education class, which is mandated. Meanwhile, mental health education classes are not mandated. Go figure. We're taught in physical education classes our heart is important. It feeds the rest of our body. It sends oxygen through our whole body. Well, okay, why do we need to work our heart out? Because it needs to be strong so it can do all it does. And if it's not strong, if we don't eat the right foods and we don't exercise, these things in our body called our arteries can start to get filled with plaque. It starts to build up, and it's hard for our heart to beat through that, right? Well, the same holds true with mental health. This stuff called chronic stress and trauma builds in our central nervous system, just like plaque builds in our arteries. And so if plaque can take us down through the form of a heart attack, that means that stress and trauma can take our central nervous system down, which is what happened to me for that 2.5 years when it becomes overwhelming to the system. And I think that the messaging needs to be simplified in that way for people to understand why and how it impacts all of us, because we could say 5 and 5 and we're all in it together until we're blue in the face. Until people understand the biology in a very simple way of how it impacts them as well, they're not going to buy into it, because they're going to say, I'll wait until something happens to me and then I'll do something about it. I'll just end that last point on this. Imagine with our physical health, that last point I just made, we treated our physical health that way. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go live life and I'm not going to learn about my heart. I'm not going to learn about eating well. And if I get cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, then I'll go to the doctor and they'll help me take care of it. It'll be too late by that point. Mm-hmm. So, I shouldn't say it'd be too late. You certainly can save people, but it'd be very late in the game by that point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly what we're doing with mental health. We're saying, don't worry about it. It's fine. Because when we say 1 in 5, what are we saying to the other 4 people? It's not a topic for them. So 80% of our population, probably more than that, because it bleeds into the other 1 in 5, some of whom don't even know that they are going through something, are thinking this isn't for me. I don't need to do anything for this part of my body. So if we can equate those things and make them analogous across mental and physical, I think it opens up people's minds a lot more to what needs to get done.
Most definitely. I couldn't agree with you more. Actually, when I was in college, I had the pleasure of working with the American Heart Association as an intern. And so I used to work with the Latino population, and I used to go to health fairs and educate the Latino population. So I love the analogy that you used. So that's why that one came to mind.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So as we are recognizing Mental Health Awareness Month in May, can you talk a little bit more about your current awareness campaign?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I noticed in this space is that there's a change oftentimes outside of just the stop stigma, erase stigma, that different organizations will roll out different mental health awareness months or for different months of the year. And it's like, let's talk now, or this is important, or all these different things. My take on it is the underlying message that needs to get across to everyone is that every single person on this planet is facing something. Because let's take these other campaigns like a Let's Talk. If you and I are watching a campaign that's Let's Talk, but the underlying belief is that it's only 1 in 5 people affected, who are we believing that Let's Talk message is being directed at? The 1 in 5 people that should be talking. Well, no, that's not who it should be directed at. It should be directed at everyone, right? So I'm a big believer that there's consistency with that messaging. So you participated in the campaign that we had. We kept the Same Here campaign for May, but what we did was 2 different things to keep it going. One is we did a video campaign showing people in every state in the country and then all across the world, kind of doing those pass-off videos that you're seeing. So, someone takes a slap shot at the phone and the puck comes close to the phone. Yeah, exactly what you're doing. And it comes here and then you see the puck come back and now it's someone else who's holding the puck and they're holding the stick, or a basketball or whatever it is. So ours was, okay, if we have this motion, let's go to the phone, let's pass it off to each other. And then we could show people going from Boise, Idaho, all the way to China, all the way to, Iran, all the way then back to North Dakota. And you're showing this global connection between people everywhere, saying it is 5 in 5, it's all of us. So we did that. We were doing 4 of them. We intersplice the celebs that are part of Alliance into the videos so that it's everyday people plus the celebrities, and there's no emphasis on making the celebrities' videos any more prominent than the other people, right? We're just like them. They're just like us, right? So we intersplice that. We put video to it, and we've made 3 versions so far. We'll have a 4th version coming out. And again, the nice thing is at the end of the month, we'll have what'll it'll be a lot of minutes, essentially be a 20-minute long video, but that spans every single state and many different countries, people showing their pride of where they're from, like you did with Kansas City, but doing it in such a way that it's showing the connectivity that even though we're in different places of the world, this is what brings us together. So that's campaign number one. Campaign number two is there's an organization called Beluga, like the whale, Beluga, and they're our curriculum partner. When I say our curriculum partner, we created the curriculum. We have a curriculum for students, for teachers, for school professionals, even for parents. But we host it on the Beluga platform because I think you'll like this, being a fan of StreamYard and a bunch of these other technologies. Is what Beluga's built is they built almost, if you could imagine this, like the YouTube meets Peloton meets Instagram of education. Okay. Now, what the hell do I mean by that? Because that sounds like a mouthful. They have their own video platform outside of Zoom, outside of Google Meetups. It's their own video platform where students, teachers, parents, and professionals, so the psychologists from our group, can create content and put that content on their curriculum platform, right? Okay, so that's one piece of it. One, it can be done live like this. So we could talk about mental health, me and a mental health professional, in front of a group of people, and it could be live. It could also be taped. So that's where the Peloton piece comes in, right? So someone can go and say, oh, I want to hear what that professional had to say about that. It's archived to look in there. But the other really cool pieces of it are it connects the world together. So if I'm in a classroom in Dubai and I want to hear from a teacher in Arkansas, Little Rock, I can tap into their classroom if they're willing to share. My kids can watch it, again, live if the timing matches up, depending on where in the world we are, or tape delay. And here's where the Instagram kind of piece of it is. You as teachers can follow each other and say, I really like Miss Priscilla's work and I really like Miss Johannon's work. And you are networked in there where every time one of you posts new content, you're able to see each other's content and decide, oh, I really like the way that they describe those topics or they discuss those topics. I'd like to learn more about that, right? So, and I'd like to share that with my students or what have you. So what Beluga did for this month is they made Mental Health Awareness Month Same Here Month. And so the cool thing is we've got avatars from these teachers and these students all over the world sharing the Same Here sign in their avatar. But then in the content that they're sharing, the encouragement was for them to share Same Here messages throughout. So it could have been everything. It could have anything. It could have been a group of school kids talking about how difficult loss is on them. A group of school kids talking about how difficult going through COVID is on them and not being able to graduate, right? The commonalities of the challenge we face is what the Same Here message is, the underlying piece of. And so it's been fun to work with them because to see all this content that's getting created across the world from all different ages, from students all the way on up through teachers and even parents in some cases, and to see it get uploaded all in one place is pretty rewarding.
That is very, very, very cool. Can you please tell our audience how they can stay connected with Same Here Global Mental Health Movement through your website and social media channels?
Yeah, for sure. So the website is samehereglobal.org. So same and then here, it's all one word in the URL, global.org. And then for our Twitter and Instagram handles, they're at @samehere_global, kind of like what you see on the screen right there. Probably our largest audience, shockingly, is Facebook. I guess different audiences, different platforms, take kindly to different messages. So on Facebook, it's /SameHereGlobal without the underscore. So you just take the underscore out of it. And then if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's just Eric Kussin, Kussin. I try to talk more from a personal perspective to people on that one than I do more of a branding perspective. So yeah, any of those ways would be awesome to hear from everyone.
Awesome. Well, Eric, I want to thank you so much for sharing part of your evening with me and recognizing Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm just really excited to continue to support your organization because your messaging just aligns with how I want to be a mental health advocate, and it really aligns with what I want to do moving forward. So thank you for sharing your story, because you are being vulnerable when you share your story, but you also I have a strong belief that you can turn your mess into your message, and find that a lot of people are going through some kind of struggle in whatever part of their life. And that's just really great that you have this nonprofit. So I'm so thankful that social media connected us, and that's when social media can be used in the right way.
Right. Exactly.
But I thank you so much, and I hope that you stay well. And I know you're in New York, and I know that it's been tough for you, but you've been doing a great job, and it's been fun to see how things are going on your end as well.
Thank you so much. And I'll give a plug for Positivity Pass It On. It's an awesome brand name. It's upbeat and look, something as simple as gratitude every single day and being positive and thankful for the things that we do have go a long way in terms of laying those tracks in our brain where, we're able to stay positive and we're able to continue moving forward even when there's obstacles in front of us. So great job on your end as well.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things is that, it's not one of those things that it's just all about being happy all the time. I would say that my life has positioned me in such a way, had a lot of character building things happen, and I've just learned to be resilient, which is probably why I've been able to handle COVID maybe much better than other people. But it's still hard for me some days, because I am a mother, and being a mom is very difficult during these times. And so I kind of want to make sure that people know it's not just, it's just about being positive all the time, but it's about finding good even when it's difficult.
You're preaching well. I love that.
Thank you so much. And so this video will be available on my Positivity Pass It On YouTube channel, and I would be so grateful if you could subscribe, and then I will have a new guest hopefully next week, and I'll be sharing that information shortly. So thank you to everybody, and as we sign off, I'm going to say same here and pass it on to you.
Awesome, Priscilla. Thanks so much for having me again.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Okay, bye.